If you've studied even a little bit in school, you're probably familiar with the Pythagorean theorem. But today, I'm going to tell you about Pythagoras the philosopher. Pythagoras was born in 570 BC and died in 495 BC. He was born in Samos, a Greek island in Asia Minor, very close to Miletus. However, he didn't spend his life there. In fact, he traveled to many countries. Pythagoras had a deep love for travel. Some say he went to Egypt, others claim he traveled to India, and still others believe he visited Babylon. Whether all these journeys are true or not, it's clear that he traveled extensively. Eventually, he chose to settle in the city of Croton, in southern Italy, where he spent the rest of his life. Greek historians say Pythagoras was a student of Anaximander. This may be true or it may not, but there's little doubt that he was influenced by Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes. The fascinating thing about Pythagoras is how little we actually know about his life. In fact, we also know very little about earlier philosophers like Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes. Most of what we know comes from the writings of others like Aristotle, who described what they said, taught, and believed. Their own writings did not survive. This lack of direct records allowed myths and legends about Pythagoras to grow, making him an even more mysterious figure. For example, one legend claimed he was the son of the god Apollo. Another said his thigh was made of gold. Some stories claimed he could time travel, fly, or move through the air at will. Others claimed he could speak to animals. Pythagoras himself said he had lived many previous lives, at least 4 of which he could remember. There was even a myth that he could write on the moon. Despite these myths, one fact stands out. Pythagoras was the first person to call himself a philosopher. In ancient Greece, learned men were called sages. But Pythagoras wanted to set himself apart. He chose the term philosopher, meaning lover of wisdom. This was the first recorded use of the word. Pythagoras was also the first philosopher to establish his own school, an academy where students could learn directly from him. It was unique for its time. Everyone in the school was considered equal, and it followed a communal lifestyle. However, membership was limited to people from the aristocracy, making it what you might call an aristocratic commune. This school didn't just focus on education, it also played a role in politics. Over time, the influence of Pythagoras and his followers grew in Croton. But in the later years of his life, a major democratic uprising broke out there. This rebellion, led by the demos, a social class that was neither aristocratic nor enslaved, ended up destroying his school. The Pythagoreans were suppressed and never managed to rebuild their academy. To understand why, we have to look at Greek politics of the time. Ancient Greece had at least 3 main classes: the aristocracy, the elite ruling class, the demos, free common people, and slaves. There was ongoing conflict between the aristocracy and the demos. Meanwhile, the old tribal system was collapsing, partly due to the spread of slavery, which was enriching a new segment of the ruling class. This created tension within the aristocracy itself, between old tribal leaders and newly wealthy families. Private property began to emerge as a new concept, which was progressive for the time because it broke down the old tribal order and laid the foundation for a new society. But not everyone embraced these changes. Pythagoras formed his school partly to preserve what he saw as valuable old principles, even as society was changing. His school was also a secret society. Pythagoras divided his students into 2 groups: listeners, who only heard his teachings, and learners, who studied them more deeply. He even had strict lifestyle rules. For example, members were forbidden from eating beans, a rule Pythagoras defended in his writings. All property in the school was held in common, and importantly, women were allowed to join. Pythagoras believed women had the same capacity for knowledge and logic as men. The school's symbol was the tetractys, a triangular figure made of 10 points. This symbol has been adopted by many later secret societies, such as the Illuminati, Freemasons, and Rosicrucians. Even Plato's Academy used a triangle as its emblem, with the inscription, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here." Pythagoras was not just a philosopher, he was also a political leader and a religious teacher. His philosophy contained a mystical, spiritual element, influenced by the Orphic religion of Greece. Central to Pythagorean belief was the idea of transmigration of the soul, that after death, A person's soul moves into another body or even another life form. If you're familiar with Hinduism or at least Bollywood movies, you might recognize this belief. Pythagoras claimed he could remember his 4 previous lives. His followers believed that if a person lived a virtuous life, their soul would be reborn as a human in the next life. But if they lived badly, their soul might be reborn into something else entirely. Pythagoras and his followers lived an austere, almost monastic lifestyle, valuing simplicity and discipline. To them, philosophy wasn't just about ideas, it was about how you lived your life.